So I'm making this video as a preliminary video to discuss an idea and get some feedback on it. And I've had this idea before, but this morning and recently I was reading things about the whole voter fraud issue. I'm currently visiting the state of Arizona, traveling in my bus, and recently members of the Republican Party were asking Republican followers on Twitter if they were willing to die to overturn what I presume they think is the stolen election of Donald Trump. And I have a friend who believes that the election was stolen. He believes that there's a big, evil, global conspiracy involved with humans and aliens, both running this world for reasons that are not clear. So I'm not here to discuss whether the recent election between Trump and Biden was stolen. There are elections in the past that people feel were stolen, like the race between George Bush and Al Gore. And there's a long history of Republicans doing everything they can to exclude people of color, so that people of color are either unable or too afraid to vote. So if we want to talk about voter fraud, there's a long history here that we can discuss. And the only reason to talk about that is the fact that in this country, there is a very strong political will involving certain individuals and groups aimed at either preventing, discouraging, or minimizing the number of people who vote. And if we want to talk about that, we can talk about that. For now, however, I would like to propose a new idea of how to do voting in America and possibly everywhere in the world. And it's really very simple. During this election, there were a lot of complaints, whether true or false or simply made up, that voting inspectors were not allowed to inspect to make sure the voting was being done properly and fairly. And voting inspectors are people in the room that are supposed to be from any party who has a candidate on the ballot, so they can make sure that no one is destroying, changing, or any way interfering with the vote counting, so that the final tally of who voted for what candidate reflects the votes of the people who went to the polls and voted. So these overseers and inspectors are meant to make sure that there's no monkey business. That's their entire job. So my idea here is simple. My idea involves a system where you, the American citizen, becomes the overseer of the election process. Every American gets to watch and make sure that there's no funny business during any public election. And this idea does not involve putting cameras in every room where every voting ballot is counted. No. It would just be a way for you to go online and see that your vote has been recorded according to the way you voted. If you voted for Joe Biden, then you'd be able to see that your vote has been recorded as a vote for Joe Biden. If you voted for Donald Trump, then you'd be able to see that your vote has been recorded as a vote for Donald Trump. And your name would not be online. It would be your voter ID number, a number that only you know. So no one else can look and say, oh, Fred, he voted for Trump. Or Joan, she voted for Biden. No one would know, but they could look at the same spreadsheet you could. So when you would look up your voter number, you'd see, okay, it says I voted for Trump. And if that's what you intended it to say, then that's what it would be. Now you might say, but that doesn't stop anybody from changing the votes after I check it. And that's true. But in your county, you would be part of a voting group of maybe 200 people. And at the bottom of the list, it would say how many people voted for Trump, how many people voted for Biden, and how many people didn't vote from your group. And those numbers should add up to 200. There should be how many people voted for Biden, how many people voted for Trump, and those registered voters who didn't vote. And all those three numbers together should add up to 200. So you and everybody in your group can check to see whether there was any funny business or whether things aren't quite adding up. And it wouldn't be some inspector that you've never met making sure that your vote is being counted correctly. It would be you and your neighbors and everyone in your house and everyone down the street who's checking to make sure that the votes are what you said they should be. I don't want to complicate this video, but this is a little bit like Bitcoin. In Bitcoin, all transactions are public. Everybody gets to see that this account sent this many Bitcoins to that account. It's all public. That's partly what makes the whole crypto Bitcoin currency thing work. It's all public. Everybody can see. The only thing is we want to keep voting private. If you vote for Biden, you might not want your family to know that you voted for Biden. So nobody's name would be up on the list. But you could go online and see that your voter number says you voted for Biden. And if nobody complains that their vote has been tampered with, then we know that the votes from your group of 200 people hasn't been tampered with. And in your county, there may be 500 groups of 200 people. And when you add them all together, that's the number of people that voted for either Trump or Biden in your county. And we know that those numbers haven't been tampered with. And anybody can look at any group in any county in any state state in America. Now, there are people in America that don't want voting to be fair. They want to eliminate as many people from the voter rolls or make it as difficult for people to vote as they can possibly make it. They don't really want democracy, really. And I can understand. Democracy means you don't always get what you want. But if you want democracy, then we should all be for a system where the voting results are fair and clear. And I think the people who don't want democracy don't want that to happen. But I'm proposing this idea because I don't think we have to go through another repeat of the thing that we just went through. People and organizations are often deeply resistant to change. So we must ask ourselves, do we want to be a democratic country? Or is there another government system that you'd rather adopt? So like this video, and if you think there's a better way to do voting, and that we should perhaps consider alternative options, then maybe you should share this video with a family member or friend. Thanks for listening, and may the human race learn to get along. Live long and prosper.